Welcome to Between the Covers, the show for readers, writers, and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I'm a publisher at Red Penguin Books, where we publish books of all types and genres. So whether you have a manuscript all ready to go, or something still in your head, or maybe even 400 sheets of loose leaf shoved in a drawer, visit us at redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. I am so beyond delighted to be joined today by three fabulous authors who have certainly unleashed themselves. Cherie is the author of House of Pluto, The Divine Houses. Wow, I can't wait to hear about that. She writes, Robin is bad luck. She just wants to be a normal teenage girl, but instead she spends her time watching everyone around her die, as if death seems interested in her in particular. But when her aunt dies, things change. A stranger wearing black appears in the hospital room to warn her. She's not all who she thought she was. Robin must unlearn everything she thought she knew about being human in order to track down whoever has been killing her family, or she's next. Please welcome author Cherie. Thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Oh, so thrilled to have you. Wow. If that doesn't make you want to read the book, that's for sure. Crystal, where are you from? Where do you live?
I'm near Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been here my whole life.
Your whole life. Okay. And Atlanta, Georgia is my absolute favorite aquarium in the world.
Yes, it's my favorite place to go.
Oh, me too. I could sit in that room every time I'm there, that big room with the big glass. And I think I should just bring my laptop here and this would be my office. I'd just an annual pass if I lived there.
I actually got engaged at the aquarium.
Did you really?
Yes.
He's a keeper.
Yes.
What part of the aquarium did you get engaged?
At the dolphins, right in front of the dolphin tank. That's my favorite spot. We always go there twice every time we go. And we go there before we leave because I have to see them last.
Oh, I love
and we snuck back up there for the last time, and my whole family was with us. And then he just popped the question. Everybody clapped. It was like on TV.
Gosh. Okay, every time I go to the Atlanta Aquarium now, when I go to the dolphins, I'm going to picture you getting engaged right there.
Oh, thank you.
If I weren't already married, I'd want to be in front of the whale sharks. So
they're cool.
Very cool. But the dolphins, awesome. Awesome choice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about this book. How did you get started on this?
Oh, I started it in September.
This past
yeah.
Wow.
Kind of just as a hobby of sorts. Like, I've written books before, but I've never written a series. And I really wanted to sit down and see, can I write, I've written one book. That's the first challenge. Can I write multiple books and it still be a very good cohesive story? And it's turning out so far. I like it.
Wow, my goodness. It's only December. I mean, some people haven't even put away their laundry since September, and you wrote a book.
Well, I've been fortunate to write like during the daytime. So I actually just released the second book today.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
I'm going to have to slow down a little bit though. It's killing me.
Oh my gosh, wow. You are quite the prolific writer.
You're impressive.
Right?
Thanks.
My gosh, you got to give us some tips here. I mean, I can't even type that fast.
Well, I grew up typing, so I do type fast. But I set timers with my drafts. There was my last book. It took me several years to get it finished. Several years. And because I just kept putting it off. And I found out that if I sit down and I set a timer and I force myself to write, stuff gets done.
Oh, now tell me something. Do you have a particular time of day, and how long is this timer? We're all going to want to do this. So how long is it the timer? Time? Is there lots of coffee involved? Like, what do we need to?
Well, I used to write in the middle of the night because that's when inspiration came to me. Was very much a pantser, turned plantser. Like I started plotting more, and it's helped. But there's a website you can go to. It's called For the Words. You may have heard of it, maybe not. But they kind of gamify writing. I like to play games, so it works for me. And they have these boss fights that you do where they set a timer for you, and you can't turn it off. You can't stop it. If you don't write, you lose, and you just can't stop writing. And that's how I get my drafts out.
My gosh, wait, tell us again, what's that website?
It's called For the Words, and it's the number 4.
Number 4, forthewords.com.
.com. .com.
Okay, and it's sort of like the proverbial, like someone nagging you on your shoulder then.
You can't stop, and it won't turn off.
Wow, so how long does this timer or game go on at a shot?
Well, you pick a boss battle that you want to do. So I'll see that it's 1,200 words within so many minutes. Or the ones that really work for me are called endurance battles. And that is just a straight timer. So it'll be 20 minutes and you can't stop writing. And it's different from a sprint because during a sprint, you can kind of stop and think about what you're writing. But this, if you stop writing, the boss beats you. Like you'll lose if you stop. So it just kind of forces you to overcome that inner critic.
Wow. I have been so fortunate to interview literally hundreds of authors all over the world. And Crystal, you are the very first is writing books, turning them out like this on what sounds to me like a video game.
I like games.
Gosh, I'm going to have to totally check this out. I'm telling you, hundreds of authors, and you are my first gamer writer.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought gamers were writers a lot because we tend to like stories.
I think I've had gamers on, but none of them were doing this this website that you're doing. That's really cool.
I highly recommend it.
Well, I mean, considering how many books you've turned out in a short amount of time, it absolutely is working. Now, what do you do for inspiration? Like, this is how you force yourself to write, but I mean, you're writing, fantasy here. What inspires you?
I like to daydream. I have a thing for magical realism, and I like to kind of imagine the real world being kind of turned upside down. Like all these things that we think are one thing might be another thing entirely. I just have an overreactive imagination.
Oh, that overreactive imagination is suiting you very well. So tell us about this book in particular. This is book 1 of a series?
Yes, it is the first book.
And knowing you, the other 2 books will be out tomorrow or next.
No, book 2 came out today. It's called House of Neptune. You can go and get that now. But the third one, my publicist wants to try for February. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I'm wearing thin, but we'll try.
So this is House of Pluto. House of Neptune just came out. And what's the next one going to be?
House of Saturn.
House of Saturn. Is there going to be 3 or are you going to do all the planets?
There's 6. Not quite all the planets, but yeah, there's 6.
Well, you started with Pluto, which is no longer even considered a planet.
I will. I have a soft spot in my heart for Pluto. It was a planet when I was a kid.
As far as I'm concerned, it's still a planet.
Feel bad for Pluto.
Yep, started with Pluto, and just your overactive imagination. When you were younger, were you making up stories, acting them out? What were you like as a little?
It's funny that you bring that up. It's not very heartwarming of an answer, but when I was little, I was in an abusive home. And that's what kind of pushed me towards books. It was my escape, my hideaway. And I read any book I could get my hands on, and then I started writing them. And, things got better. I got a new mom and dad. Things were wonderful, it got better. But that's kind of what spurred it,
Oh, well,
I wanted to be in books.
I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But what an inspiration you are to anyone who is in a bad situation to, make some positive change in a way that sometimes we can't change our surroundings, but we can change inside our mind. And that was really, really wise of you and powerful to do that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm telling you, what an inspiration you are, not just to writers out there, but to anyone who's in a situation that, when you were a little kid, I guess you really didn't have a lot of power to change it. Thank goodness it got changed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I give a credit to God. uh, but books and writing, it can be a very good coping mechanism. It can be very healing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that, I know that this is fantasy and thus fiction, but I always think that there's something of yourself in every single book. So tell me a little bit about that. How are you in your books?
Hmm. I've never really written characters based off of people I know in real life because my whole goal was to get away.
Gotcha.
So, but I do think that my main characters are a lot similar to me. So sometimes I can write a little bit of stream of consciousness, and before I know it, my characters kind of sound like me.
Mhm.
Usually, the main character that I'm writing the point of view through. Um, but I'd say that's the way it kind of shows up.
Yeah, no, I get that. And sometimes it happens with writers that you don't even realize something about yourself until your character does something and you're like, oh, that is a little bit of me in there, isn't that?
Yeah, yeah. I have brain fog, and I think my character does too. Memory of a goldfish at times.
Now, you mentioned that you were totally a pantser and now you're a plantser. Can you, for our viewers, explain that and explain how that has helped you? Because I'm very curious.
Sure. So pantsers are kind of like writing by the seat of your pants. It means you don't have an outline. You just kind of sit down at a blank page and you go. And I've always liked that because that's the freeing part to me. I can do anything I want. There's no limitations. So I really didn't like outlines. But then I wrote a book called Lucky and the Killer, and I got 130,000 words into the story, and it had went everywhere. And so I was like, maybe I should reel it back a little bit and at least do some sort of outline. So now I do the Save the Cat worksheets. I'm sure y'all have heard of that. Um, but it works so well. And it gives me just enough outline where I can see where the story's going, but I can still have fun with my characters and change things on the fly.
Good for you. Well, you are just a font of great resources here. Save the Cat is a great way of outlining a book.
It works really well.
And for any of you who like being a pantser, or even if you've never written a book before and you're saying, Save the Cat, how is that going to help? Head over to Amazon, grab yourself a copy. Great way of making sure that your book has certain beats to it and that you follow a story arc and that things flow in a certain way and that you get to the point at the right part and such like that. So, really great advice. How did you come upon all of these great nuggets of advice? Did you have someone who was helping you, or are you just like Googling and trying to find out everything?
A lot of it I learned on my own. Google's a good resource. I would visit the references section in the bookstores and find all the books on writing that I could. I did take a couple of creative writing classes in college, and I've met some author friends that kind of helped. It takes a community.
It does. Well, Crystal, you are completely a sponge for all of this good information. Thank you for passing along to the rest of us. You're awesome. Thank you. Our next author is Brenda Cortez, who is the author of Howl Competes at the Transplant Games. The Transplant Games of America is an Olympic-style event for transplant recipients, living donors, and donor families to meet and compete in fun games. Howl is a transplant recipient, and he enjoys competing in swimming and other fun games, as well as hanging out with his friends, Blaze, Spark, and Bella. He can always count on them to cheer him on to the finish line. Please welcome our next guest, author Brenda Cortez. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, I'm honored to have you. You have not only written this book and other things that you're doing so much for the transplant community, but you yourself are a donor, which is just amazing.
Thank you. That's pretty much what inspired my writing, was donating a kidney to another mom. Coming up on 17 years now already.
Oh, wow. How did this whole thing come to pass with this other mom and meeting her and and your heart being moved to be a living donor?
Just a conversation at the school, just talking about helping with an event that I was organizing, and then hearing about her need, and just me putting myself in her shoes. Our kids were in second grade and fifth grade at that time. And I thought, wow, if I was in her shoes and in need, I would want someone to help me if they could. So that's what sparked it.
Wow. And you went, I mean, goodness, there's so much testing to make sure there's a match. Did you somehow know in your heart that you were that person?
I did. I knew right away that day in my heart when I offered to get tested, and knew that I was her same, the blood type that she needed. So yeah, funny that you asked that, because yes, I did.
You just knew. It's not like even swapped stories. You just like you knew. And that
Mhm.
inspired you in organ donation and promoting it, and the book, which is such a wonderful book, not only for children who might be a donor recipient themselves, which, oh my gosh, talk about the perfect book, but for them to get to know the whole topic and understand it. Maybe they have a parent who's a donor or recipient, or just to kind of plant the seed for the future so that they'll sign up to be a living donor someday for someone else. I think it's such a valuable book. Thank you so much for writing it.
Oh, thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
other people will be asking, how has your health been over these past 17 years? Because I definitely want to encourage people to be a living donor if at all possible.
Yeah, my health is fine. Um, Majority of people, you can live with one kidney, and some are actually born with just one, and you might not know it until maybe you went in for some kind of testing. Just a couple things, be careful. Don't get involved in, contact sports. Like, I'm not going to go play tackle football or intense hockey. But there's definitely still athletes that, are doing endurance and biking. There's one living donor, he twice this year rode his bicycle 1,600 miles to raise awareness. So yeah, and he's just like a year from donating. But otherwise, no, I mean, I'm not supposed to take ibuprofen. It's mostly sick Tylenol. But otherwise,
It's not a big sacrifice. No, no, no. And I'm guessing you really didn't want to play tackle football much anyway.
no.
Well, you are such a huge inspiration. So tell us a little bit about Howl. How did you come up with this? Now I understand the reason why, the topic, but how about these particular stars in this book? What made you go with Howl the Owl?
So the books that I write are mostly based on, real life stories, and such as with this one, Howl competes at the transplant games. That's actually my 9th children's book. So it's a series for Howl the Owl. The first one is not a Howl book that I wrote. And that one is actually, I tell the story from my daughter's perspective of me donating a kidney. But Howl came about because I wanted to write more books after that very first one. And I wanted a cute character to inspire kids to be kind and help others. So I came up with the saying, help others with love. And I was like, oh, that's an acronym for Howl. And he actually became this character, this stuffed animal guy. And I also have him on my t-shirt.
Oh my God.
And he's on my mug of hot tea. So that's basically how Howl the Owl was born. And he's just been helping, spread his message of kindness, help others with love, and then tying in organ donation with a lot of the books.
Wow. That's just amazing. How many of us are trying to come up with an acronym for something and we sit there saying, what's a good word that starts with a W? And you just came up with help others with love and an owl like that. Like you come up with acronyms like that.
Thanks. Yeah, I just feel like me donating a kidney, it was meant to be. So I feel that Howl and that acronym was a gift that was given to me.
That is just amazing. So tell us a little bit about writing a children's book. Very different than writing, fantasy or novel. Crystal dropped a number of 130,000 words. Children's books, I always say, are so hard because there are so few words that every single word matters so much. Tell me a little bit about that.
Exactly. Sometimes it can be easy and it can just flow right out. But again, that's just like your first draft and you have to keep going back. My books don't rhyme, but I've actually been working with some other authors that I've been coaching, and people they like the rhyming books, but they can be very, very challenging and take a lot more time and effort to really try to get that the metric and the rhythm, and you want it to sound right and you sound professional. So for me, I find writing the children's books easy. I struggled with just a couple of mine if I felt that I didn't know the topic well enough. One that is about dialysis, since I personally didn't experience that. But having to interview other people and put myself in that position, so they're more like nonfiction. but still.
Now, did I hear you say you coach other children's authors?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
About that.
And I'm also doing some co-writing coaching as well. So people had started to reach out to me. They'd seen that I had a number of books that were published and just wanted my advice and help. And I decided, I think enough people are reaching out that maybe I should do something with this and make it an official business of helping others. So I've got 2 that their books have been published this year, and 2 more that we're just finishing up the illustrations and getting ready to publish after the new year.
Oh, how exciting. Now, how did people find you for this? Or were these people you knew?
Some are within the organ donation community or friends. And I've actually been growing in just my craft of everything that I'm doing. I put together a book, which is not a children's book. Okay. And it's because of organ donation. So I invited 24 other authors, chapter authors, to be a part of it and write their experience. Some are living donors like myself, some are recipients of all different organs, and then donor families. Doing that book really, really helped me grow because they were all beginners. And so everyone submitted their chapters to me, and I did, all the first 2 rounds, developmental editing, and then some of the copy editing, and then we had the final editor and proofreading. But that really, really helped me grow, and I learned so much from that experience. So I'm continuing now to help other people as well with nonfiction stories.
That's fantastic. How exciting. So you get your little hands in on other books. Tell me a little bit about the illustrations for your book as well as for other books. How does that?
Sure. I've been working with the same illustrator for all of my children's books. And then I've been searching out different illustrators since I'm working with multiple people at a time. So I can have different options available to them. I've been using one lady for a couple of the books, and she's done an amazing job. One of the authors, she thought she wanted to do, watercolor and simpler. And she learned that the digital look was just so much crisper and clearer that she completely changed. And the other thing was, it's a lot easier to make a change in the illustration digitally, versus when it's already been drawn and then the illustrator has to almost start over. So that was a deciding factor. And, I keep learning as I go as well. And it's just it's fun and exciting.
But I hear, boy, you're learning all about art production and books and all of this because you bumped into a mom who needed a kidney.
Right. And the title of my chapter in the Because of Organ Donation book is A Purpose Becomes a Passion.
Oh, I love that.
Exactly what you said.
Oh my gosh, that is just so awesome. A purpose becomes a passion. Brenda, you're awesome. I certainly hope that people are flooding over to buy the books. And obviously there's more than one out there, the books, and also your expertise on children's books, which is fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our third author, Rachel and AnnMarie Fischer, are co-authors of Raven Naelo and the Fall of the Guardians. And they write, pressure builds as Raven and the mortal guardians take the reins of the protectors of the realm. But when the necromancer takes his sister's corpse and a fellow guardian, the rescue attempt doesn't go according to plan. To defy your king is treason, but to defy your father is heart-wrenching. Raven acts against King Naelo's wishes and sets sail to the Abyss realm. This is book 2 in the Raven Naelo trilogy. So you'll want to definitely grab book 1 to catch up on it. Now talk about artwork. That's going to draw us right in. Please welcome author AnnMarie Fischer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thrilled to have you. And I love that backdrop behind you too. That's
Thank you very much.
And you've got book 2 and book 1 right behind you, right?
No, actually, this is the back cover of the book
okay.
too. So it's an open book.
Open book. We're seeing a whole open book behind you.
Yes, you are.
Well, congratulations on the second trilogy. It is a trilogy, right? So one more to go on this?
One more to go. Yep, for at least this part, yes.
And how far along are we on that one? How is that going?
The third part, we actually just started tying up our outline. We have the first chapter and the prologue pretty complete. So we also like planning. So like we live by an outline, because if we didn't, we would be like 20 different stories in and going, wait, no, too many, let's back out again. So I feel your pain, I understand.
AnnMarie, I am so fascinated and about how you have now a co-author with you. Rachel is co-writing with you. I would think you need a plan, because if you were both pantsers, I can't even imagine it. But tell us a little bit about how that works when you have 2 people writing fantasy and how you manage. I'm just blown away.
So the whole concept for this trilogy was Rachel's idea, and it was based off of a D&D, Dungeons and Dragons campaign from many years ago. So she came to me with this story of this old campaign. I loved it, and I said, I would love to help you write. And so we are a perfect combination of writing together, because her strengths are the dialogue and the characters and also the battle scenes, and I come in and I pull out all of those really small details. So I'll take something that's just very strong but simple, like Raven walking down a path, and I'll add all of the little details to help people create it in their mind. So that's why we work really, really well. And it's so nice to have a co-author, because when you get writer's block, like if one of us is stuck, we just walk away and say to the other one, see what you can come up for this chapter, and we're able to just play off of that, and it works so well. It really does.
My gosh, how did you get started writing together? What inspired, like, hey, I think we have complementary strengths here. We should do this. Was there
well, we went through, we were cleaning up and found a bunch of old character sheets from that game, and she showed them to me, and I was reading them, and I'm like, I love these characters. And she's like, I thought about maybe doing a story with them. And I'm like, you should. And then it took us 10 years to write the first book. So and how that came about was she just came and said, I really want to do this. And so I was just encouraging her to start the story. And so we would start it and then stop it. And I truly believe that we needed those 10 years, because the story that we have today definitely is not the story that we had before. We love, and our story now is so strong and we love it. And so that's how it started. And she just came to me and said, okay, I know what I'm strong at. And she wrote it, and she'd say, I just know what I need help with. And that's exactly how we just started. We just started brainstorming together, creating an outline. Originally, it was only supposed to be one book. And then we met an author friend, and we sat and talked with her, and she encouraged us to think about making it a trilogy. And so we were like, oh, that's awesome. And then we were like, holy cow, wait, how are we going to take this little bit of story that we had for one book and make it into a trilogy? And then that's what we did. We sat down and we created 3 outlines for 3 very different books, and found that perfect arc that just kind of flows through all 3. So,
oh my gosh, that's fantastic. And so inspiring that you said that it took 10 years. I love that, because I want people to sit here and hear, okay, this is book 2 of the series. Book 1 took 10 years, but good that it took that long, because this is a much better book for it. And book 2 didn't take you 10 years, did it?
No. We wrote book 2 in about 8 months, but with COVID and stuff like that, it took us a little longer to get our groove going. But once we got there, we banged it out pretty quick, and it was, we were really happy with it.
Fantastic. Tell me something, since you're doing fantasy with another person. Do you have charts and graphs and maps and spreadsheets and characters? Like, do you have all
Oh
that?
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, you should see. Rachel has this database of, like, there's a timeline so that we know who's born when, because you have to remember, like, with fantasy, you've got elves that age, are around for hundreds of years, and humans that are just normal, and like then there's other creatures that are in between that. So, like, we have a huge timeline so that we can keep track of how old certain people are in certain times, and then when that one's born, okay, how old are they? And yeah, so there's timelines, there's graphs about, like, certain events of the past, things that happened even before our story, and what things are going to happen in the future from our story. Yeah, there's tons of stuff like that. And then we have, like every writer has, we've got a list of all of our characters and all of their traits and stuff like that, because we have so many people in our books. We couldn't remember everything if we didn't write it down. So, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure. And especially since there are 2 of you, you both have to have, like, copies of everything to make sure you stay on track with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that you got it all set, and book 1 took the longest, book 2 is quicker, is book 3 like, wow, we're just gonna.
Yeah, book 3 is coming out. Yeah, soon. Like soon, not in a month, but it'll definitely be out soon, sooner than the second book.
Well, I don't know. You have a book inspired by a D&D game. You are just ready for that website that Crystal was talking about. You're obviously a person, so
yeah, I'm gonna definitely check that out. Definitely.
That's unbelievable. So tell me something about being a published author now. Anything different or surprising that you didn't expect, like the way your life changed because of this?
I think not necessarily change, but like the enjoyment of things. Like, we love going to events, even though, they can be hard to find nowadays, but like, we love going to events. We love meeting people. We love, we just did a book club at a library and loved sitting there with all these women and discussing the books and why we write certain things and why we didn't. It's great. Like I think that's the number one thing, is just meeting fans and other authors and learning from that. Those have been great benefits for both of us, and we've really enjoyed. I think learning wise, the biggest hurdle for us, and I think this goes a lot with a lot of self-published authors, is the marketing part. Like just the struggle of learning how to market socially, like on social media and stuff like that, and the do's and the don'ts. And it's so different trying to market a book than a widget, like a product, like a mug or whatever. So learning all of those has just been very educational.
That's a good way of phrasing it, educational. I'd love to ask our other authors, Crystal, what is something surprising about writing that you didn't expect, and maybe the hardest thing, because AnnMarie mentioned that. What was the biggest learning curve for you?
I think she hit the nail on the head. I mean, marketing is the hardest. It's the hardest part. I think most writers, well, maybe not. She likes going to events, but I'm a big introvert, and getting on camera is very hard for me, actually. And just marketing, you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to branch out, meet new people, and that's the hardest part for me. So I think she really hit the nail on the head there.
Well, I think you're doing great on camera, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Brenda, how about you? Anything surprising or more different than expected?
Just social media, really getting involved. I mean, that's marketing as well. I feel like throughout the years, it's been about 5 years since my first book came out, and I feel like it's patience that I've really had to learn, patience in just a lot of different aspects of it.
Oh yeah, no, I get that, especially when it takes so long, that's for sure. Awesome. Well, I have a question for all three of you. Since we are in the holiday season and we are wanting people to just run right over and buy your book, what should they couple your book with? Like if I was going to give your book as a present and I was going to maybe put it in a little gift bag, what should I put with the book? I think Brenda can cheat because I see some teddy bears behind her that she could put with. That's kind of cheating. You're already all of those. Exactly. That whole toy line. She was ready for this question. That's for sure. Crystal, how about you? Is there something that they should get with your book for a really cool present? I don't know, like
A blanket, because the first book, they go to the Arctic and it's very cold.
Oh, I like that. So somebody should get a copy of your book and a blanket. I'm always cold. So
Me too.
I'm glad that you've warned me about reading your book and I'm going to feel cold. AnnMarie, how about you? Is there something that would make a great coupling with your book?
There is. So our first book is Naelo and the Artifact of the Stolen Souls. And that artifact is actually goes through all three books. And so I'm wearing it. So we have it handcrafted.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I would recommend. Everybody purchase this along with the books.
Oh my goodness. And are you selling that on the website as well? They can just.
We are. And then we do have 2 other necklaces as well. We have a blade charm, which is a dagger. And we have guardian wings as well. So, but yeah, that's what I would recommend.
That's fantastic. I'm always recommending to authors to have some sort of an upsell if possible with their book, because, sometimes you want to give, not that a book is not a fabulous gift, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you want to like put it in a little gift set with something else. That's why Brenda has all those toys behind her, I'm sure. How about
merchandise is really, I think merchandise, especially for fantasy fiction, is very important. I mean, we've done the gauntlet, we've got the bookmarkers, we've got the maps, like anything you can come up with that ties to your story is really important, I think.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, since I have three incredibly successful authors. I can't even count how many books between you, how many words would be truly terrifying, that's for sure. How about your best tips for our aspiring authors out there? What would you say to them to get them started? I know we've had a whole episode full of tips, but knock it to just one. I don't know who wants to. Crystal, you got something for us?
Sure. My best tip to any aspiring author would be to invest in your writing. Invest your time, your energy, your resources, commit to it. Like if you're going to get out what you put in. And I spent so long treating it like a hobby and doing it on the side in the middle of the night. And it wasn't until I sat down and I invested myself in it that I started getting to where I am.
That's awesome. You know, I heard you say earlier about writing during the day instead of at night. And I realize now that that was not just a time of day thing for you, but that was a prioritizing thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually saying, no, I'm not leaving writing until the last thing I do.
Right.
The first thing that I do. That's the
Mm-hmm.
priority. That's really awesome. And you noticed a big difference when you had that mindset shift, huh?
Yeah, and not everybody has the privilege to write during the day like I do. And believe me, I know. But you can still invest other things. You can invest what little time you do have. You can invest your learning. You can go on Google and learn more and read from other authors. There's always something you can invest in.
Awesome. Fabulous tip. I love that. And different from what you said before. So now you're just a treasure trove of tips. Brenda, how about you? I know you coach other writers too. So what would you say to get our audience started?
I think one of the big things is just let your thoughts flow. And whether it's your handwriting or your typing, and I've heard both. I'm like a handwriter, not for like a big book like you ladies have, but for the children's books, you know, I like to sit with a pen and a paper and let it be sloppy, even if it's like abbreviations, as long as you know what it is, but just don't worry about anything, but just getting the thoughts out.
Awesome. Yeah, let it flow. Let it just come right, pouring right out of you. And handwriting is nice if you can get away with that. AnnMarie, how about you? You've gotten a whole lot of stuff done. What's your
I think the biggest thing I would say is don't be afraid about writing. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I'm not really good at grammar, or oh, you know, I can't write in those big, long, eloquent sentences. You don't have to. You should be authentic to yourself. Write how you want it to sound. There are other people out there that can help with the editing and things like that. So just like she said, just get it out, enjoy it. Don't be afraid. Do what you're comfortable with doing.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, let me just remind all of our viewers of where they can find you and your books. House of Pluto, The Divine Houses is by Cherie. And you can go to crystalcherie.com to find out more, since this is book one of a trilogy. Book two came out today, and I hear there are also other books too. So we definitely want to check those out. Howl competes at the Transplant Games, written by Brenda Cortez. And you can visit howltheowl.com and learn more about Brenda and about organ transplants for living donors, donor families, transplant recipients. It's a huge resource. So visit howltheowl.com. And finally, Raven Naelo and the Fall of the Guardians. This is book two in the Raven Naelo trilogy, written by Rachel and AnnMarie Fischer. And you'll want to catch up with book one. Read book two quick because they're working hard on book three. So you want to get caught up with the trilogy. And I can't thank you enough for joining us and being such a huge inspiration to our readers and our writers. So thanks for joining us, and happy writing. Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're an author who would be interested in appearing on our show, or perhaps you're a member of a book club, we do host book clubs as well, please visit betweenthecoverstv.com. By the way, at betweenthecoverstv.com, you can watch past episodes in addition to learning more about our authors and guests. So sign up there if you would like to be a guest on the show yourself. And if you have some books that you would like to get written or published, visit redpenguinbooks.com. Thanks so much for joining us.